Nothing was special about us. We just took action when other people didn't. You're the one that has to push the boundaries a little bit because that's what we did. We just were like, okay, how do we do this? Let's look, let's confront it, let's figure it out.
If you've outgrown your current path, this is your invitation to step out of the hustle and into your purpose and passion. It can be healing, it can be fun, and it can be strategic. This is where you become the boss goddess in your niche and bring your dreams to life. This season, I'm happy to announce that the Boss Goddess podcast has partnered with Modern Day Wife. Modern Day Wife is a global membership that provides community and resources to the modern woman who is looking to thrive in her career, relationships, home life, and social and personal life, what they call the 360 view. And they also are very known for putting on these amazing, big, bold luxury events. And their next in-person luxury event is in Los Angeles, and I will be there. And it is called Soirée en Blanc, and it's being hosted at the Sofitel Hotel. And you can get your ticket at the link in the show notes if you are in LA, and you can join me there. And if you're not in LA, then check their list of events at themoderndaywife.com to see if there's one near you. And of course, you can join their online global community as well. Just visit themoderndaywife.com. If you are ready to say yes to redefining what is next for you with podcasting, then I want to invite you to get my Activate Your Passion with Podcast Blueprint. Just go to boss-goddess.co/activate. This is your free 5-day guide where each day I'll send you an email with guidance and a downloadable prompt, exercise, or tool that you can take some action with to begin to get clear on how to pursue what lights you up with the power of podcasting, from how to get started with your topic to how to build your own ecosystem that you can monetize later. Let's redefine what comes next for you so you can step into your goddess era. Just go to boss-goddess.co/activate. Hi, and welcome back to Boss Goddess. I'm Barcy, your host. And if you're joining for the first time, I'm happy to have you, and I hope you enjoy your experience here as you're listening. And if you are a returning listener, welcome back. Thank you for coming back for more. And for both of you, I want to invite you this season to step into your goddess era and really explore what activating your passion could really look like for you. This season is all about activating. So one of the most impactful ways to explore this, I believe, is through podcasting. And if you want to know how to take just a few actions to step into that and start understanding how this can really work for you, then head over to boss-goddess.co/activate. And that link is in the show notes. You can get started for free with that resource that I've created for you right after listening to this episode. So like I said, this season is all about activating, and I put together a really lovely process that you can start in really simple, easy ways through podcasting. Which brings me to today's topic. We're talking about taking big, bold action today, and even more specifically, we're talking about how to create our own ecosystem by growing an aligned and engaged community, creating a community of people who are here for what you're building. That's a big component, actually, to why I believe podcasting is such a powerful first step when wanting to bring a vision and a passion to life. Podcasting is actually designed to build a network. It's designed to build your network in a really aligned way, both from a listener standpoint and also from your guests that you bring onto the show. This is just a big cultivation on both ends of a network. So if you take a moment to think about marketing, for example, the reason people advertise is because they want to reach new people who feel aligned with their offerings. And the podcast is just a way to cultivate that and actually shorten the length of time it takes to get someone who doesn't know you yet or is just getting to know you, to really shorten that length of time it takes to like you and trust you with their time first, because they have to invest time to listen to your episodes like you are doing for me right now. And also eventually with their money. There may be opportunities that I have for you, for example, that resonate because we're keeping the conversation going. And the whole point of this is for me to give you ways to elevate your life in meaningful ways, right? And we can keep growing towards that. And, for example, today I gave you something free, and there may be another opportunity later down the road if you want to keep going where you may want to invest a little bit more than just your time. So that's how we start to build the ecosystem. This is how that gets created. Another way to think about this ecosystem is also by creating collaborations. So more specifically, developing relationships with brands and business owners and other creators who are also aligned with your message. And you can start to develop relationships with them, which you can do by inviting them onto your show, let's say, which I'm doing today, actually. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But it all really starts with meeting yourself where you are and taking bold action from that place, from wherever you are right now. Trusting your inspiration, trusting your intuition, and allowing yourself to bet on you. And here's the secret. You don't need to know what you're doing first. You get to bring it to life first in small steps, as long as you're honoring where you are now and the unfolding of knowledge and confidence that comes from that allows for the trust to start to happen from the doing, right? The activating. And that is exactly the journey that my two guests are on. Yes, so we have two today. They are the co-founders of a lifestyle and events brand called Modern Day Wife. We have Meagan Elieff and Meagan Fialkoff. And I'm also happy to share, like I teased a moment ago, that Boss Goddess recently partnered with Modern Day Wife, so this won't be the last time you hear about them. They're building something incredible, and their in-person events are really next level. They look so fun, and I get to go to one this month. So here's a little bit more about them, starting with Meagan Elieff, the visionary behind the brand. So Meagan Elieff was crowned Mrs. International in 2024 and recognized for her leadership with Modern Day Wife and her philanthropic work with the Kendra Scott Foundation and Dress for Success. She has an upcoming book which will offer women a feminine framework for life, guiding them on how to build businesses, lead teams, manage time with intention, cultivate fulfilling marriages, and plan with long-term vision. Her career began with Fairmont Hotels and Resorts, where she launched a luxury retail store that generated $750,000 in revenue. And she was named one of Beverly Hills Living Magazine's 40 Under 40. Okay, now from Meagan Fialkoff. Her background has been as an executive director in the event industry for nonprofits and entertainment and medical organizations. She's produced over 2,000 events. No wonder their events are so amazing. She has a gift for communicating messages to any age and any profession, from children to CEOs. And as the co-founder of Modern Day Wife, she brought the lifestyle brand and membership to the US because, well, it originated in Canada, by the way. So Modern Day Wife is a global membership that provides community and resources to the modern woman who's looking to thrive in her career, relationships, home life, and social and personal life, what they refer to as the 360 view. And their next event is in Los Angeles, and that's why I get to go. I will be there. It's called Soirée en Blanc, and you're supposed to wear white, and it's being hosted at the Sofitel Hotel. And you can get your tickets at the link in the show notes. I'll link to tickets in the show notes. And if you're not in LA, there are other events throughout the year. So check out their list on the Modern Day Wife website to see if there's one near you that you can attend. They look really, really fun and a great way to meet lots of other bold women who are doing really cool things. And of course, you can join their community as well. They have an online community. So I'm so excited to share this conversation with you because it is chock full of realness. So get ready to go behind the scenes as we really pull back the curtain on what it takes to show up and create something that gets people talking and showing up for more. And here's a hint. It takes effort, it takes grit, and it takes staying connected to your passion and purpose. You may want your journal for this one because you're going to want to take notes. So here is my conversation with co-founders Meagan Elieff and Meagan Fialkoff. So welcome, Meagan and Meagan.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you both for joining me. So, as we just heard in the intro, you've both built a really amazing, interesting luxury brand. To me, it feels like it's for women, but I know men are invited as well, called Modern Day Wife. And I think something that's really interesting about what you've built is the engaged community, really motivating people to show up for what you're creating. And I know events are a big part of that, but for anyone in business and podcasting or aspiring to do either of those things, and they're wanting to create an engaged community around something that they are passionate about, much like the Modern Day Wife, to me, it feels like a big passion project too. And we'll talk more about that. But what would you suggest someone begin with? How do they start to build something like that?
Oh my gosh, such a good question, huh? I mean, I think the first thing when I think about like how we started Modern Day Wife is obviously there's going to be a purpose and a passion that resonates with you as an individual, right? So for me, in the beginning of Modern Day Wife, like in its conception, like my main problem was figuring out how to handle everything that I had to do, right? Like being in a committed relationship. I wasn't married at the time, figuring out how I was going to pay my bills, how I was going to do
Mm,
personal development courses, how I was going to run my schedule, how to be a wife. Like my mom didn't teach me these things. I mean, I grew up in a very middle class household, I would say on the lower side. So my parents both worked pretty much day and night. So I didn't
mm,
really have someone teaching me how to do these things to like, let's be honest, right? And then it's also interesting because I was thinking about this recently too. I feel like at the time, I'm an 89, so I'm a 1990, 89 baby. When we were growing up, like in our early 20s, things kind of changed, right? I mean, I grew up with the Disney princess and the fairy tale of getting married, but then it was more like get a job, have a career, don't need a man, support
mm.
yourself, don't ever be left to pay the bills on your own, right? And so, I think that was confusing. So I had this problem in my life where I still wanted to be married and have a family. Like I remember that being my dream, but then I also had this, I need to be a boss babe and do my own thing. So it was kind of an internal battle. So you have a problem and then you have a purpose. And I realized I really wanted to have a community that supported more of if you want to do traditional marriage, you can. If you don't, that's okay. But really, how does someone do this, right? How do you do it and be successful and make money? So that's the first part. You have to identify like what your problem is and what is your purpose and what's your passion. And when you have that, it's almost magnetic, right? And for me, I always loved aesthetics. Megan just mentioned this on another podcast. I think that's why we also get along well. I was always girly too. I loved pretty things. I was the girl who was 8 years old, having the Halloween costume party, making my friends do a runway walk, and having my grandparents and my parents judge them on who had the best costume. Okay, there was that. I was like running the school candygram program. So like
Aw.
I was always doing these like wild things, right? Was like creative and I loved beauty. And so I feel like that as well has always been something that we do at our events. And Megan's very much like that too. So we have this element of aesthetics that creates a sense of feeling matched with the purpose. And that's to me the underlying thing that attracts the people. Like, of course, we can talk about the added layers of what you get out of it and the knowledge and the business and the connections and the resources. But at the foundation, there's that feeling. And that's not replaceable. And I think Megan and I know that because her and I hadn't done an event together in a while because I'm pregnant.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. But I think we both realize like that's what it is.
The passion part too.
Yeah.
Like Sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's really
No.
key for people to understand what you just shared about passion and purpose because we throw those words around a lot these days on social media and it's like passion. It's like a cliche that lives on the wall at this point.
Yeah.
So I think it's like really important to understand like what you're sharing about how that translates. When you have something that you're trying to solve in your own life, it becomes personal. And I'm all
Mhm.
about like kind of making, I think business is personal. I know that we say it should be separate, but I think that's bullshit. I think it
Yeah.
has to be, and that's where the passion comes in. I think it clicks when we can get connected to something that we're trying to solve in our own lives and then allow that ripple effect to really occur. Like you said, it becomes magnetic. So I love that you shared that because we're talking about connecting and bringing passion to life a lot on the show right now. So that makes so much sense. And for podcasters, again, that makes a lot of sense because you need to be able to talk about this for ever and ever and ever, whatever the thing is that you are bringing to life. And the same thing goes for business. So I just wanted to emphasize what you just shared because I think it's an important part that sometimes we like to skip over and listen to all the practical crap that people are telling us we should do, which is important too. It just goes in a different part of the process.
That's right.
You just reminded me about that on sales calls. We have to put the excitement back in because you can get into the practical. Well, you're going to get this and this and this and this. And some people will buy from that, but it is true. There needs to be that emotional connection and so on.
Yeah. And don't they say that, I forget the percentage, but there's a certain percentage of how people buy, and their majority are buying from making this emotional decision. They're buying from their emotions, not from their brain. It's really just a feeling. And I think you both create that really well in a really holistic way, like from every corner of the brand. Like, I'll just share this real quickly because I came across you originally on Instagram. And I think a friend of mine went to an event you guys hosted in San Francisco. And it's hard to catch anyone's eye on social media these days because there's so much going on and it's a scroll. But it definitely stopped me in my tracks because not many people are doing events really well in this very like over the top in the sense that every detail was thought about. And I could tell through your photos and your video that that's what was happening. And I was like, oh my God, I want to know them. And then it just worked out that here we are.
I was like, music to our ears. We love the details. That's
Yeah.
happy. Oh,
Speaking of modern day wife, I am dating someone because I'm divorced, and he's a prosthodontist, which is like a dental specialist, right? And he was telling me, I still always am like, I don't understand fully what you do. I sort of understand now. But I asked him one day, I was like, do you do blah, blah? He's like, no, I stay in my lane, right? There's like
Mm,
the orthodontist who does this, the peri, blah, blah. And he's like, I stay in my lane. Just as an interesting note, also, we specialize in events. That's what we do. So sometimes, and this is not really the answer to your question, but sometimes you see people try to do what you do and they have their own line of business already and they're just doing it as like a side thing or PR or maybe to kind of take business from you, right? And sometimes
mm,
I feel like let everyone win in their own businesses, right? Like stay in your own lane a little bit and let everyone win in their specialty.
mm.
It does happen to be what we do, right? So I appreciate that. And I keep referencing this book that I read by Jacqueline Johnson, who's the creator of Create Cultivate. I'll never forget this, but she talks about you start something and then the copycats come, right? And this will go back to answering your question on how you create community, but we had created this concept of the influencer co-host back
Mm.
in 2021 or 2020, really. I think it just varied in the name. And I recently saw someone that comes to our events create a wellness event, and then they called it their wellness influencer co-host.
Whoa.
Without getting into the negative, to kind of now focus to answer your question too on creating community, I feel it's important to just include everyone. Obviously, there's some things that we make more exclusive, like we'll have like our magazine launch parties or our podcast launch parties, and those are a bit more invite only. But in regards to our events, like we do, one thing that people always tell us about our events is that we have a very nice audience. It's not
yeah.
like I won't name names of companies, but there's for sure one company where it's like $2,000 a ticket to go to an event, which is fine. That's their audience. But I can see when I watch their videos and so on that might not be the warmest community. We happen to somehow attract people that are like very nice. And I think that is one of the reasons why people come back.
I was going to ask a question around that a little later, but we can jump into that now because we're kind of segueing into it already, where you have a background in related things that you've done that you've built already. I'd love to know more about from both of you what foundation you started this on, because I think that's important to understand is, how can we leverage what I call our zone of genius and marry that with a new passion or a new problem that we want to solve, hopefully both. So I think it helps for people to understand like, what were you doing before and how did that fuel what you're doing now?
Well, that's a great question because I think sometimes people think too, oh, it just happens overnight. And I know Megan has a great story too. And we both have things that have really helped us create Modern Day Wife. Is it's an evolution over years. Like actually, when I think about it, it's been about 10 years of training prior to Modern Day Wife that allowed that to conceptualize into something that it is today. I mean, for me personally, it's interesting because Megan also took public relations in post-secondary. That's what my background was in. And then I also had some training in tourism, which encompassed event planning. But I actually went into a retail buyer role. That's just how things fell for me in my corporate career. I just got lucky. I got mentored. I think mentorships are amazing. That's why I'm always willing to help people. That someone just took a chance on me. I was not trained as a buyer, but I learned to be a buyer. So the really fun thing about that is when I was doing that role, I learned a lot about brands because I was buying for a high-end gift shop. So I understood the small to medium to large size companies and how they operated and what their goals were and what they were looking for marketing and promotion. I also worked in a hotel. When you work in a hotel, there's actually a ton of perks because everyone works so hard. I don't know if you've ever worked in a hotel, but Megan knows because we work with a lot of hotels, so I think she starts to get it. It's kind of this cult in a way where people are just obsessed with the hotel that they work with and they will work all hours beyond 40 hours. It's crazy.
Wow.
So you work a lot, but you also, there's so many businesses with inside a business in the hotel, right? You think about this. There's the restaurants, there's the rooms, there's the gift shop, there's the spa. And since you're immersed in that daily with all of the other executives, you learn a lot about how all of these entities run.
Mm.
So you understand, I had no idea what a profit and loss statement was, but I learned that. You learn how to manage money because I was the buyer, right? So I had
Mhm.
a fund that I was giving and how much that I spent, and I had to be profitable, and I had to do inventory, and I had to market the products to sell them, and I had to figure out how to promote them on social media and give ideas. And bring this was in the age of influencers and blogging was just starting. So we would have bloggers come into the store and pick cute products and take them for photo shoots. So all of that added up into what we could do at Modern Day Wife. We don't really have a marketplace per se. We don't call it that. It's more brand activations and experiences, but it's like, okay, how do we create this brand space? All it was basically building a mini store at our events. So I had that training. And then I just got on a whole other path while I was working as a buyer where I did some personal development courses and part of it was starting a passion project in your community. So I started this side business while I worked as a buyer and it was an events business for women. It was a completely different name. It's a long story, but it was almost a pilot project to what Modern Day Wife could be because it was the exact same setup as Modern Day Wife right now. I mean, it was events, it was speaker panels, there was no fashion show, but it was the same thing with brands and all of that. It was just had a different mission. So I was doing that on the side as I was working full time.
Mm.
So a lot of those skills just translated, and we even do some of the things that I did when I worked in corporate in Modern Day Wife. So I think people forget that, but it's years and years of cultivating practice and experience that allows you to have the knowledge to create what you want to create. And that's, I think, what sometimes I would say in today's society people don't get. The newer generation. I don't mean that in a negative way, but there's something to be said about hard work that gets you a result, and that's worth something.
Thank you for that. I think that we confuse effort
Yeah.
with like overworking and burning ourselves out. Similar to what you brought up earlier with this like conflict between like boss babe hustle culture is what it turned into. But when it started,
Mhm.
it was very empowering, right? Like that was supposed to be the message. But then on the flip side, we kind of want to stay connected to our femininity. And so, how do we I'm having this conversation with myself all the time as well. It's like, how do we blend the two without killing ourselves? Because I did get very burnt out by trying to do all the things. And you basically like lose time because you have to then heal from that. It's like, how can we start doing this in a more fluid way in the way that you just described by leveraging what we're good at? And the other Megan, you brought that up too about how it's just important to kind of, for just saying in a different way, you said stay in our lanes, but really it's just leaning into what we're already really great at that we also love versus doing something that we might be good at, but we don't love it because that happens a lot too. So I want to make sure we clarify for anyone listening who's like, all right, well, I'm good at this, so I'll go do that. But you could burn out that way too. So the passion piece is super important. But yeah, thank you for sharing it that way. I'd love to hear Meagan Fialkoff's version as well. Hopefully I said your name right.
That was perfect. Okay, so there's this line in Sex and the City where Kim Cattrall is with her three friends and they're in the bathroom and she says to them, I have to tell you something. And they go, yeah. And she goes, I'm a little bit older than you. And they're looking at her like, we already knew that, you nut job, right? So I just thought of that because I'm a little bit older than Megan. Okay. So I'm not 89 like you, Taylor Swift. I'm 84. So I'm a little bit older. But in any event, in 2006, I started a nonprofit of a drug education prevention in Manhattan, in New York City, surrounding areas with my dad. My dad's a periodontist in New York. And so I also went and helped him achieve really all his dreams, right? He would always send me his ideas. And finally one day I was like, okay, we're gonna do this all together, right? So for example, he was born in Cuba. He had always wanted to go back. So I was like, okay, we'll plan a humanitarian trip to Cuba for dentists, right? And I figured it out. I schmoozed my way into the Cuban interest section in DC and blah blah, this 60 minutes producer, and long story, he ended up getting us to Cuba and we went twice and we accomplished this humanitarian mission, right? He had a continuing education course, right? So I was helping him really take everything he was doing to the next level while we also were creating this charity. So we both have pretty big goals. And so we set out to originally provide a drug education event for every school in New York City. And there's 2,200 schools. And that was the original target. And so we just decided to make that happen. And so for many years, that's what I did full time. I produced about 2,500 events already since that time period. I've spoken probably at 500 of them from a school in the Bronx with 200 wild kids to a classroom where a kid jumps on a table, takes off his t-shirt, starts throwing desks, and I ran out of the classroom for my life, to we mentioned another podcast, speaking at the UN, to planning these galas that I formed and so on. So it was the full gamut of humbling yourself and also realizing how much help these kids need. Like I still to this day have a lot of attention on the kids in these boroughs. Like I don't know, they need so much work on their goals and their role models and so on. But in any event, that's what I did for many years. And while I was doing that, I don't actually, unfortunately, remember all the details. I used to be so good with the details. I like don't really remember my past anymore. I'm so involved in right now. But I remember at one point someone taught me what a run of show was.
Mm.
And I had this thing called the Drug Free Hero Awards Gala, and I ran it for 7 years maybe, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. It was like a huge gala. And I remember one day someone taught me what a run of show was, and I created one for my gala. And it kind of was a game changer on how you produce these red carpet videos, to the staffing, to the trophies, to the celebs, to the video, all this stuff, right? And so over time, I really learned how to run things in a professional way. I had an ideal scene of, you see the Oscars or the Oscars party, and you have an ideal scene of what an event would be. And I always knew that. And so I guess I always wanted to approximate that as much as possible, right?
Mm.
When I eventually moved to LA because I got engaged and then eventually married, I had to give up a lot of that. So, without getting into the whole story, modern day wife, when I met Megan and then we partnered, I had some of these skills. Like I knew how to get interns because I had that for my nonprofit. I knew how to get basic media and I knew what it took work wise to make something successful. So the burnout thing and all of that, here's my only comment on the burnout. The truth is, like, we wouldn't have modern day wife if we didn't work till midnight the first 3 years. I'm not saying that people should kill themselves, but we recently were on a sales call with my team, and one of the sales girls said to the other girl something along the lines of "Don't work so hard," and you should really like take
Mm,
it easy and blah blah blah. And in my mind, I was like, I don't know if that's the best advice. Like, what's it gonna take is what you have to do. So in the beginning, when I was doing Modern Day Life with Megan, I had my whole other job of fundraising for the first few years and a newborn baby.
mm.
I didn't sleep and I sacrificed a lot, but I knew ultimately that's what it was going to take if this business was going to make it. And that I learned from my dad. I knew what it took to fill his schedule. I knew what it took to run a staff of people not showing up and being irresponsible. I knew what it took to fill a place with attendees, the number of people you have to confirm in order to get people to show up. I just understood the estimation of effort. And to me, actually, that is the biggest thing that I think younger people, or even sometimes people I work with, don't get. And
Mm.
sometimes I hesitate spending my time with people is because I'm like, if you're not willing to put in the work and roll up your sleeves like I did, then I know you're not going to be successful. Unless you're in the system, you're Kim Kardashian's best friend or you're Paris Hilton, fine. Like you're going to be successful because you have all the connections in place. But if you're not in that system, unfortunately, it's not fair and it's like rigged. I'm not saying this is fair, but from my viewpoint of society, to make it, if you don't have that all set up, it takes way more than what people think it's going to take.
That's true. And you're just emphasizing the point I was making about effort. And burnout comes when you're doing things that are out of alignment. That's the distinction, really. It's like when you're doing something and it's not really in your zone anyway. And then you work really, really hard to try to force it, and then burnout occurs. So that's different. And I think it's being thrown around a lot because a lot of us are in that place where they made choices to be in corporate or to work for someone else or to do something that wasn't connected to something that you were good at or something that you're passionate about. So I hear you on the hours that are required to reach a certain level. That's just true. Yeah, you just have to make an effort and you have to care more than you ever thought. You have to kind of fight for it, right?
Totally. Sometimes I wish I didn't read these things, but I read this post a few months ago where someone was like, it's the 5 year business mark where businesses either fail or they lose. And I was
Mm.
like, we're at the 5 year mark, right? Well, it's been longer than 5 years. Megan started this in Canada in 2019, but us together, it's 5 years now. And I saw that and I was like, oh my God. So,
It's gonna be fine.
There's so much stuff like that thrown around and like you said, like there's this rhetoric for Gen Z where there's a lot of like the easy life kind of angle. And the pendulum can always swing way too far in any direction when something goes wrong in the previous generation. So then it swings all the way to the other side. And again, there's just a confusion that comes up from that swing. It always happens in every generation. And this is what I think has happened.
can I say one thing on that that I recently have thought about and I'm really trying to separate what's true and what's not. So
Mm,
I shouldn't say everyone, it's not everyone, but you see this a lot in social media where they talk about not having to do the work yourself. And,
mm,
it's not good and blah, blah, blah. And you need to get a point where you're the one going on vacation, you're not doing the work. But then I was thinking about like, I don't know, a doctor or a dentist, and they're still doing the work and there's nothing wrong with it. So I think there's also this big pushing that like if that you're not successful if you're having to do the work. I think it's great if you can do that, and that's a great goal. But I also think I don't know, it sets up these examples on social media that you're not successful if you haven't done that. And maybe that's my own shtick.
yeah, there's a lot of success rules out there. And I think that particular belief is really, I think this is true for everything that you find that people say or any rule book that you find out there. It's not applicable to every single type of business. It's not applicable to every single type of, I talk about breaking the rules a lot. And whenever I go on a podcast, we always end up talking about throwing everything out and doing what's best for you. Because if you're a creative, if you're an artist, like you said, if you're a doctor, there are artists that also like hire big staff and they assemble the installation and then it's kind of weird because they didn't do anything. So whatever, I'm not judging that, but it does create a question. And you kind of wonder like, okay, like how hands off do you want to be? And I think that's a personal question,
Also, to
right?
make it to say that you're not enjoying the work. That's also another thing. Like, why is it that, I actually enjoy what I do. I enjoy what I do when we're making money. I don't enjoy it when we're not making money. But when we're making money, I actually enjoy it. And I
Yeah.
think about some women I know who don't work that live out here in LA. And I kind of go back and forth in my mind. And I'm like, I would never want to be never doing anything. Because also, like, I was in Scottsdale last week. I had to work the whole time just because we have an event coming up. It would have been nice to not work, right? But I was talking to the guy I'm seeing, and he was like, well, you would probably get bored after a while going to the pool all day, every day. So we
Oh,
had a little discussion on that because I was like, no, I'm fine. I'll go to the store down the street. I'm going to go to the pool. But yes, if it was forever and that's all I was ever doing, I probably wouldn't be happy either.
I agree. I don't think you'd be happy. I mean, like it's true. Like even well, my husband and I recently went on a baby moon, but every day we worked or did something for like 3 or 4 hours. We're like, we can't just like, go to the pool and the beach all day. Like, kill me. I shouldn't say it that way, but like it's just not who we are as individuals, right? Like it's
Yeah.
great to relax, but I think that's actually like the style that I like is like when you can combine a little bit of both. But I agree. Like I think I feel happier when I have a purpose or something to do. It doesn't like it can come in different formats, like obviously non-for-profit, if you're volunteering and working on a board, if you're, doing whatever you're doing, but to just do the pool or the TV or nothing all day, that wouldn't work well. I don't think for either of us, right? But there's different ways you can contribute in society. I feel like if you're not doing something, it's a little bit
Yeah.
scary.
It's that connection to what you want to give to the world. And that connection comes from your connection with yourself and what feels good. It's just what feels good to each individual and whatever that success marker is. I do think it's a personal question.
Totally. I also think it's great. Like I have a friend right now she doesn't work full time. She has 2 kids, but she's gonna volunteer and be like a foster for dogs, right? Or she
Oh,
like works
Oh, I
at her,
support that fully.
right? Or she like works once a week at the school, like volunteering. I mean, it can come just because you're not collecting a paycheck or bringing in the money doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't work. I think that's also something that could be clarified too.
Yeah.
and is
Because
invaluable.
that's
Yeah.
right. I mean, think of like the asset she is to the school or to the Humane Society or to her family, right? Like these are all other forms of contribution that I think sometimes get looked over. But I think that's great. Like if someone has the privilege where they don't have to work, but they're doing something with their time, and this is so off of modern day life, but it is true. Like that's productive and it should be like acknowledged because it if someone wasn't doing that, what would happen to the dogs? Or like, would your child be fed their pizza and lunch at school while the other moms are working, right? Like that person who's
Yeah.
doing that is super valuable. So it's just interesting to think of.
Yeah, a lot of my audience are creatives. Like they might identify as an artist or they might identify as someone who's just creative, but they don't feel like there's enough value in expressing, just focusing on that.
Yeah.
So this kind of translates for them in that way pretty well because I see that often where it's like, well, it's not really like adding to anything or it's a waste of time. Like depending again on like what generation you come from. Like my mom is a creative, but she never feels like it's worth anything because her mom told her how much of a waste of time that is, which is so unfortunate because,
Megan's like,
yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I was just like Megan had a story for that, I'm sure.
I wanted to do theater my whole life.
Me too.
Oh,
That's my degree. My degree's in theater.
oh wow. Well, yeah, I was told you can't do that because it's all about luck and you're not going to have a consistent. I was brought up very like no debt, health insurance, right? And like my life, I'm 40 and I'm like if my friends on Long Island saw how I live, it would be like so unacceptable because I do come from a very that
Hmm.
type of thing. At the end of the day, that information was false because when I moved to LA, I was an assistant to a composer.
Mm.
I learned about people who all the jobs in post production, and there's a million.
Yes.
You can be in the industry in a million and one jobs, but no one's talking about this. So it's
Right.
not true.
Yes. There's so many practical ways to approach it. I mean, I started a podcast agency. That's how I stayed connected to my heart threads to telling stories and uplifting people. And it's just so interesting. Anyway, so I want to get back on track because I want to understand where the two of you intersected and where you came together as partners. Can you tell me a little bit about that story? Like how you met and then how you started working together?
Well, we actually met through a Modern Day Wife event. It was a digital event. So I was doing a digital event with Elena Cardone. She had just written her book, How to Build an Empire. And her and I decided that all the proceeds made from this digital event, this was in, I think, June of 2020, so it was during COVID, would go to a charity that, we had picked or she had picked, which was Drug Free World. So I had looked up Drug Free World, who to contact, and I had sent a message on Instagram and I had reached Meagan Fialkoff. And so then that's where her and I got chatting, and I was like, hey, can the proceeds go to your charity? And in the background, she's like, of course, right? But that's how we met. And then, oh, my dogs are going crazy, but I'll let her continue the story from there for us.
That's how we met. There's a lot more to the story, just what attracted me to Megan and what attracted to me to Modern Day Wife when I nail it down is, I was married at the time, and it was a concept of the excitement of life. There are possibilities when you're married, right? Like you're gonna have kids, you want to have family friends over, you're working, you're gonna create your house. There's a lot of future. There's a lot of excitement. You've kind of reached this point where I don't know, I guess that was the interest that I had in it, right? Was the possibilities and excitement. And that, I don't know, I guess that was what it was. So we partnered. There's again more detail to this. And we decided to launch Modern Day Wife in the US. We just went really hardcore. I mean, I look back at the beginning and there's some things I look back on my life and it's so embarrassing, but like I didn't know Megan. And we just partnered and it's the month of July. And I'm like texting her, like telling her I'm doing this and blah 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 and running her and like I don't know this girl and I'm bossing her around basically in this first month. And we sorted it all out. We eventually decided who's doing what pretty fast and how it was all going to go. What Megan kind of does is she makes up this thing that we're doing. And then it's just because she says we're going to do it, it's somehow like, yeah, that's right. Everyone knows about it. This is real. It's happening. And I guess Megan said it's going to happen. So I guess it's going to happen, right? So she says, we're doing this digital event in September 2020. I'm like, great, we're doing this digital event. And I contacted Rebecca Minkoff, who was a friend of mine from my nonprofit work, and she agreed to speak at the event. And that kind of put us on the forefront of like the main stage of events very fast. We were fortunate in that regard, right? We had her and a bunch of other celebrities that agreed to do our events. But we
Mm.
also like very fast, like, so we had this intern team in July of 2020. Here we have these interns, then one of them is researching platforms. We got this platform Hopin, which was big during COVID. And then we just created these huge once a month digital events. And when I mean huge, massive. Megan was in Canada filming segments that we would show as like these pre-filmed segments. Like, who do we think we are, right? She's at the store doing a segment. We have these random people we find on Instagram that are agreeing to speak about their relationship because we had this power couple segment at the
Mm.
time with these one time, God knows what that couple in San Diego, who they were, but we had couples, we have these celebrities. I started just reaching out to publicists again. Like, I think at the beginning, I guess I like had no shame. I feel like I've gotten more shame the more that you work and the more no's you get. Sometimes you absorb them and then you actually move backwards. Whereas I should be more confident now. And sometimes I feel like I'm less confident than I used to be. But in the beginning, I guess I had like no shame. So we would just like Haley Duff, her agent, just here I am on the phone with Haley Duff's agent coordinating Haley speaking at our event. Like, who the hell do I think I am? Right. And so we got really lucky because we put on these huge events. We put them on every month. We have this US and Canadian audience. And because the celebs weren't working, they were very willing to do digital events and do it for us pretty easily. It's much harder now. So that's how we met. That's how everything came into be. And then in April 2021, we decided that we were done with COVID. No one else was, but we were done. We were done with COVID. We were going to do in-person events, whether anyone liked it or not, whatever emotions that causes. So we put on an in-person event in August 2021. And then in June, we put on three in 2 weeks. LA, Scottsdale, and Vancouver. We just decided to put three on in 2 weeks, and everyone showed up. Last
Wow.
part of the story in August 2021, we had this Pilates studio that we kept pitching to sponsor. And one day they were like, we have the parking lot at the Lux Hotel. Maybe we can just do an event there. So they introduced us to the hotel, we coordinated it, and Megan and I planned this event called Party by the Pool in the Lux Hotel, this big parking lot. So we started selling vendor spots and panel spots and so on. No idea if people would come. We had no idea. But we did it and people came. The hotel had these golf carts golfing people up the driveway because there was no room. Sunset Boulevard was like packed down the street because of the backup on valet and because we decided to start doing events before everyone else.
So they were excited to come. Yeah, I remember 2021 clearly when events were trying to come back. I know I went to at least one conference that year as well. I think I went to Mexico that year as well. Because I was like, bye. I gotta go have some fun. But that's such a great story because I love what you said about like how the confidence kind of like it comes and goes sometimes in our journeys with this kind of stuff, like that early ignition to something when you are activating. There's just something about being bold in those moments that really like fuel the fire. And I'm the same way when I look back on things where I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, why did anyone believe me about anything? That's truly like how I create as well. You just create from nothing and just try to get people on board to help bring it to life. So I love that. And I think sometimes when we get like known, we start to pull back and go, okay, we need to make this perfect. And it's like, well, how can we start keeping that, for me at least, like how do we keep that boldness in the execution, you know?
Well, also what happens is sometimes the more you get known, what is inevitably going to happen is there a certain percentage of the population is not going to like you. This happens
Yeah.
with any successful person. You see this with celebs. They'll talk about their trolls on Instagram on their comments and so on. And I'm like, why is this person who has so much money and they're so successful and so beautiful? Like, why does Taylor Swift care about the negative comments? But even Taylor Swift does, right? So
Yeah.
what happens is sometimes you get enough negative comments that it can really put you down, you know? So of course, same thing with us as we've expanded and so on. Of course, you get some people who just don't like you for really no reason. It's hard not to take those things personally, you know? So
Yeah, that's a good point. That's what starts to happen. People start chiming in, and it's not always nice things. And we get into our humanness about, right? It's like we're human beings at the end of the day, and we all have good intentions in what we're creating, and we're excited about it. So it's always a little weird when someone's like trying to put out the fire.
yeah, or try to like influence other people, right?
Mm.
That's always an interesting thing. There's a John Mayer song, I'm sure you know, where he says, I just found out there's no such thing as the real world, just a lie to get you rising above. Do you know those lyrics?
Not off the top of my head, but I get it.
You know, he goes, I just found out there's no such thing as the real world, just a lie to get you. So it's kind of like we're all here in the real world working, but it's just high school in a different setting
Mm.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, whatever's not healed will come out continuously reflected back, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's good though sometimes to look back at the stories. Like I love that you share that, Megan, because we do all these events, right? I mean, it was Miami, and then I know it's like, okay, we're focused on June, or I know Megan's head's like totally in June, and then we're like on a different create, and then you forget about, oh my God, like yeah, we just did that, right? Out of thin air, we just researched. And I think that's the interesting part is nothing was special about us. We just took action when other people didn't. Like we were
Mm.
willing to go against the grain, or I don't know if that's the right terminology for the setting, but we're okay, COVID's not stopping us. We're gonna do this, like we're gonna do that. And I think we do that even today still, and it does help us. But sometimes you do forget, right? You're the one that has to push the boundaries a little bit because that's what we did. We just were like, okay, how do we do this? Let's look, let's confront it. Let's figure it out. And I think that's been a successful action for us with any idea we have because we usually think about it and then we're like, okay, well, how are we going to do it? What does it cost? How do we make it happen? Who's going to do it? What do we need to know? Because I think sometimes people look at maybe us or you look at others and really there is no difference than they purely made the decision to actually do it.
So I talk about action a lot on this show. It used to be called Be Bold, Begin, meaning you got to be bold and you have to start in order to find out, honestly, like to find out if you like it, to find out if it works, to find out what to change. You just have to start. You have to put action to it. So I'm wondering if you have any suggestions or advice or inspiration for those who kind of struggle with actually activating, getting started in something that they care a lot about or have a vision around. What would you say to someone who kind of struggles with that?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that has worked for me is just if you have a thought about it, just do it. Just do it then. I mean, think of Modern Day Wife. Oh, that's a great name. Okay, let me just buy the website domain and buy the Instagram handle. You need to take time out of the equation because there's so many excuses you could come up with, right? I mean, it's so interesting in life. I've broken agreements too. I'm not perfect, but I've really tried in the past few years, right? Like if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If I'm going to be there, I'm going to show up. Like, if you make the agreement, follow through. Because
Mm,
when you don't, it's just easier to get excuses. Like I'm sure we've all been there, right? You're like, oh, I'm not going to go meet that friend, or oh, I'm not going to start, or I'll start tomorrow, or the diet's going to start tomorrow, or exercise tomorrow. I'll take my vitamins next week. Whatever it is, it's the same thing with business. So if you want to have a sales call or you want to have an event, or for us, we want to create a podcast or we want to create a magazine. I mean, Megan and I, we literally were in bed one night together and we're like, okay, we need a sponsor for this, right? Like that came out really wrong. We're not in bed together, but we're having a sleepover because we were at an event and she's in her queen bed and I'm in my queen bed. But we're getting ready to go to sleep. And this is how we operate, right? Where some people just, I don't know what they are doing. Maybe they're out for cocktails and they're like having drinks with the girls. Like, I don't do those things. Like, you have to look at your schedule though and be like, is that activity productive? I'm not saying I don't have friends, but for me to go for 4 hours for cocktails, I'm not going to do that in my life because I could use those 4 hours to take action on something else, whether it's in
mm,
my business or time with my husband or my family. So it's all about how you prioritize it, but you should just do it right then. You don't wait 3 days to message the person. And that night, we're talking about how we need a sponsor. We're like, okay, who can do this? And we message and call that person then, not tomorrow, not 3 days from now. I'm not always perfect at that lately because I'm like, okay, there's quite a few things going on, but I still try to do it fast. And I think that that's the important piece. Like you just have to do it before you find a reason to not do it. There will be a reason why you shouldn't do it. That will happen.
I like that. I like the idea of just, well, one, you have to kind of trust yourself
Yeah.
in order for that to kind of like click. And I think a lot of people struggle with their confidence and trusting that they can do that, that they can actually act on those inspirations, those moments of, I want to do this. So that's great advice. It's how I operate as well. And it's what's gotten me to create things. And if I stopped myself, I would probably come up with a big laundry list of questioning whether it's a good idea or blah, 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 blah. And then prioritizing is such a good part of what you shared because if I acted on every idea I had, I would have no time at all because I have a lot of ideas. So yeah, it's figuring out like which ones are is this the right time? Is there space? And like how does it fit into everything too? But taking at least one step is a good way to just move forward and bring something to life. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
You brought up sponsorships in that story, and I know that's something that feels really daunting as well to most people. Podcasters are told all day long that that's how they make money, and it is one way to make money. And I don't talk about it that much on this show, but I think it's worth it because there are many strategies to acquire someone to help pay for your production and to be a partner with what you're creating. And I'd love to talk about it from that angle because it seems like that's how it's fitting into modern day wife, where there's a very mutual way of benefiting from each partnership that you curate. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach that and how someone might start in their own, let's say, podcast or business?
Well, yeah. So I think first of all, you have to figure out what your pitch is, like what they're paying for and what is the exchangeable item. I mean, Megan and I really value ourselves on that. I mean, if you're going to give us X money and we're going to give you this, we're going to deliver that, right? So it could be anything. So you have to think of in your business what that could be. Obviously, there's standard things that we have that we exchange with, but you can do research on this. So figure that out and then come up with your pricing. I mean, that's important. I mean, I think in always having at least three options is great because if someone's not going to do the highest amount, then maybe they'll do the middle or they'll do the bottom. So you have to set the tone. The other interesting thing about pricing is as you grow and expand and become more well known or you deliver a higher product, you can increase your prices. I mean, we've done that year over year.
Mm.
When looking at who to pitch, I mean, the biggest thing, I mean, luckily I trained with like Grant Cardone sales training. That's really what helped me. My husband's also in sales. And then also from just over the years, like working corporately, I had some knowledge on selling, but
Yeah.
looking at who do you already have relationships with? Like, what's your low hanging fruit? I remember he wasn't really a mentor. He actually owned the hotel that I worked at. He was a very wealthy man. And I remember him having this meeting with me and saying, okay, Megan, what's the lowest hanging fruit? Meaning, like, what is the easiest sale to close? Or how can you easily increase your profit? At the time, the conversation was about adding an extra dollar to items, right? Because if you add an extra dollar and you sell 100 items, you have an extra $100, right? So just looking at where you can increase things. This is a really good strategy, but it's the same for sales. Who do you know that will support you and who will buy from you first? So you access like your power base. So every podcaster probably has companies they've worked with, friends and family, or people in their local communities. So you want to target them first because they already know you and trust you. And then you work that segment, meaning, okay, those initial people that sponsor you, you need them to really value you, meaning you want them to be really happy with the service that you provided them. They are the most important because people do talk. You
Mm.
want them to then refer you to your next lead of a sponsor. So that's how you can work the people that you do know. For the other people that you don't know, you can cold call them, which is always scary. Megan and I talk about this, but she's done a great job too. I mean, the reason why we work with the W Hotel Group is from a cold call. So if you can just get over the fact of maybe your phone call is not perfect, but you just make the phone call, you can call companies. Or this is like a great strategy is you have to go in the community and make yourself known. So for example, when I used to live in Vancouver, Canada. Then I moved back to Burlington, which is outside Toronto. I did grow up here, but I lived on the West Coast for 10 years. And even I did this out there when I moved there. I would find out who is the opinion leader in that community, and I went to their events.
Mm. Opinion leader. That's so interesting. I've never
Yeah,
heard.
like who's the person that like everyone aspires to be like? It wasn't me. Like obviously, that was not me. I'm the new girl in
Who
town.
was it?
It was at the time that would have been Van City Business Babes. There's a girl named Danielle Weave. She was the girl throwing all the events. And I went genuinely, like we had a relationship. Like I wasn't trying to take from her, but it's like she's got all of the connections and she knows everyone. So I will pay for a ticket, I will support her, and I will meet people because my product, and like this is what I hate, like obviously there are some people that rip you off, and this is a long-winded answer, but like no one's going to be able to ever do modern day wife because it's what Megan and I have in our minds, right? So no one can ever really do exactly what you're going to do. So that's like a good confidence piece to just think with. But go to those events and meet people. I did the same thing when I went to Burlington. I had been here for like a week or two. I'm like, who's the girl in town that knows everyone? Her name's Ali Aruda. I paid $100. I invested in her and I went to her event and I went to her gym and she's been someone that we've worked with, right? Even with Modern Day Wife. Yeah, I had a strategy. There's nothing wrong with that, but do you expect from staying home that people are going to know you and support your business? No.
Mm.
So those are some key things. And then that's how you meet people. And then you can create collaborations, you can do sponsorships. I also did a lot of stuff sometimes at free for first offers. Like we did that, Megan and I too. We would work with companies sometimes. We don't always do that anymore because obviously we're just in a little bit of a different position, but we do sometimes have free things that brands can do with us because you also too, it's what you said at the start of the call a little bit. We were talking about how are you supporting others, right? It's not just give me, give me, give me. Well, what can I do for you? Like today, for example, and then I'm going to stop talking. It's someone in the community's second anniversary party. I spend $50 of my own money to get her a gift because people remember those things. I didn't have to do that. I made an effort to show up, say hi, give her something, congratulate her. Because if I want people to do that for me, I have to do that for them. So those are some things that I look up with sponsorships, and you do have to build real relationships. Like it's Megan and I are like, give us your money and we're never talking to you again. Yeah, people get busy, but we really try to cultivate a connection because I think people also appreciate that.
Beautiful. That is such a wonderful way to approach business and networking. It takes the sting out of networking. It's
Yes.
just human relationships with strategy is kind of what I'm hearing. And that's really lovely and down to earth if you're being
Yeah.
honest about that. Yeah. So that's great. I love it.
Cool.
Okay, so we're coming close to the end, but I'd love to know if there was one takeaway that someone walked away with. What would you want that to be?
If you have an idea, don't wait for someone to tell you it's a good idea. You don't need the validation from someone else to say it's okay or, yeah, you should do it because I think that's what we want. Whereas if you want to do it, you should just do it because that's really what we've done. We didn't wait for someone to tell us that's good enough to do a digital event. It seems like it'll be okay. We just did it. If we didn't do that, who knows if we would have what we have, right? So even if it's not perfect, you should just do it anyways, because this is not a perfect world. This is why I say lately, no one's perfect. I'm not perfect. It's not a perfect planet. People make mistakes. So it's better to just try than not try at all.
I love that.
You
Thank
know?
you.
Yeah.
So how can we connect with you and how can we join the party?
Well, our website's themoderndaywife.com. And actually, we will have a full new website and branding in the next few weeks, which is really exciting. The website that's up right now is from 2021 or 2020. So lots of really beautiful things coming. We have an event in LA, June 27th at the Sofitel. It's our biggest LA event of the year. It's called Soiree and Blonde, and everyone wears white. So you can go on our website, click on events, and you'll see it there. You could buy a ticket for a rooftop lunch, photos on the helipad, front row seats for the fashion show, swag bag. And then after that, we have WLA in August. We have Burlington, Ontario on September 8th, I think. It's a Monday. And then we have Scottsdale at the W November 21st. So for sure, get tickets. If you're interested in sponsoring, you can DM us on Instagram or email us. It's also the button of our emails on our Instagram, which is The Modern Day Wife. And we'd love to connect with you. So thank you.
Wonderful. We'll put all that in the show notes. And I just want to say a big thank you both for joining me and for sharing so openly and so authentically. It was really a lovely conversation. I know I learned a lot about the both of you, but also just about your approach to what you've built. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Boss Goddess podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you're inspired and ready to take action on bringing your passion to life with podcasting, then be sure to get my free Activate Your Passion with Podcasting blueprint at boss-goddess.co/activate to get started. That link is also in the show notes, but here it is again, boss-goddess.co/activate. And I'll see you on the inside.